And I don't know, maybe a couple, two and a half years, something like that. I've been doing shows for Bobby, and I don't know, and Bobby could tell you better if he called or they called him and he suggested or whatever. WCW was looking for somebody over Dayton Hair Arena, and so Paul Orndorff was the one that was getting people sent in on it.
Listen here, Mark.
And so Bobby's talking to Paul Orndorff, whatever. Bobby suggested me. I've been working for him, whatever, and I could go up there, and they were going to do Monday Nitro, and they also were doing that NWO black and white before they went in the building.
Yeah.
So Paul Orndorff calls me on the phone, and he says, you know, we got Nitro coming up in Dayton Hair Arena. I want to know if you'd be interested in doing the show. Well, I was told by a few of the guys that have been in the business for a little bit, they said, well, don't go out there and just do those matches where they just eat you up, because that's all the guys will ever want. They'll never think any more of you. So at least go out there and try to have a competitive match. You can at least show your talents or whatever.
Yes.
That's what I was told. It's from you guys have been in the business for a while, but I guess weren't smart enough to the business. So Paul Orndorff calls me and says, hey, I got a spot for you. I want you to come up and I want you to do the show on Nitro. And I said, I would love to. I said, I don't want to just go up there and just get ate up. You know, I want to be able to go in there and be able to do a few
Be
things.
quiet for a second out there.
If I could just do a few things in the ring so I could kind of show you what I could do. I really appreciate this opportunity, but I don't want to just go up there and get ate up. He says, I can't promise you that. He said, so, you know, it is what it's going to be, and so I can't guarantee that. So I said, well, thank you. I appreciate the offer, but, you know, I just don't want to go up there and not, you know, have a potential future. He said, thank you. I hung up. Bobby calls me back. He says, hey, did Paul Orndorff call you? I said, yes, sir. He called me. He said, what'd you tell him? I said, well, I told him I probably didn't want to go up there. I didn't want to go up there and just get ate up in the ring. And Bobby said, good Lord, what are you doing? He said, the guy who calls to try to offer you a job for the night, he said, you call him back. And he goes, hold on, I'm going to call him back and tell him it's a rib. And tell him, try to pop him. And when he, you know, thinks he was just messing with him. And so I guess Bobby must have called Paul and started laughing. I can imagine the phone calls like, Paul, was that funny or what? And Paul's like, you're something, Bobby. He said, call Paul and say, yes, sir, I would like to be there. What time do I need to be there? So I called Paul immediately back. I said, Paul, what time do I need to be there? And whatever you need me to do, I'll be more than glad and happy to do.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we go there to do Nitro, and they did the black and white thing. They said, we want you to go out there and work with Paul White. I said, whatever you need me to do, yes, sir, I'll do that. That would be no problem. I'll do that. Went ahead and did that. Was taking my boots off. They said, I think it was 8:45. Kevin Sullivan is going to wrestle somebody, and we need you. Can you go ahead and wrestle Kevin Sullivan? He's the booker at the time. So I said, whatever you guys need me to do, wrestle Kevin. Kevin came to me, and he said the exact thing without even knowing what I said to Paul. He said, I can't really give you nothing out there. I'm going to shoot angle with Chris Benoit. And he said, everything is going to be solid. He goes, I'm going to apologize ahead of time. It's going to be rough out there. It's going to be a war. He goes, but, you know.
I remember there.
I appreciate you going out there, and let's just make this happen. And thank you for having this match with me. I said, yes, sir, whatever you need. And he went out there and he beat the hell out of me. On Nitro. He threw a water bottle at me. I mean, he stomped me. He kicked me. And we came back in the back. And I said, thank you, sir. I appreciate the match. And he said, I like you. He goes, you have a good look to you. He goes, and I think we can use this cruiserweight division, not just beat you on TV, but give you some wins, develop a character. I said, wow, this is fantastic. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. So I went to the rest of the boys. I said, does Kevin just say something? Kevin doesn't have to humor you. He's the booker. He doesn't care if you like him or not. He really likes you, and he's going to give you a job. And then the damnedest thing happened. 2 weeks later, Kevin got fired. And that was it. And Terry Taylor came in, and he had no interest in me. And Bobby Fulton told me one time, he said, when your man's in, you're in. When your man's out, you're out. And my man was fired before I got in.
Yeah. And the funny thing of it was, when Paul Orndorff got off the phone with him, he called me. He said, Bobby, he said, man, that guy refused and wouldn't do it. I said, do what? So I called him and had the same conversation. So I called Paul. I said, listen, Paul, Sean didn't believe it was you. He didn't think you were really Paul Orndorff. He just was so in awe that you called him. I said, call him back. I'm sure he'll want to do whatever you want. And then he called him back, and then there you go. Yeah. So, but you're exactly right, man. That was so funny, as a matter of fact, that happened. Because Paul said, man, this guy said, no, I ain't coming. I don't want a job. He said, Bobby. I said, hold on, man. Let me call him.
It had to sound like a rib.
Oh, yeah. I said, Paul, he didn't believe it was you.
Yeah, because who else would turn it down?
Yeah, man. That's funny as
And, Bobby it was not even out of in his hands. I mean, he was this close. I was going to get a job. I was going to get me a job in WCW.
Yes,
and
sir.
Kevin liked me, and
That's
everything
what it
was
takes.
good. But
You have to be even like my brother George. I took him down, and with the WWE, Kurt Angle was wrestling dark matches. So I went down to the WWE or F or whatever it was, and I said, man, why don't you give my brother a shot? And they said, well, why don't you bring him down? So he's in Charlotte. So I brought him, called him up. I said, get down here, George. So he went out and he met Kurt Angle. And George was going to Japan then. And Kurt Angle said, look, I already got a job. Whatever you want to do, we'll do. And they went out there and they had a real good match. But then Terry Taylor, I think, told me, he said, and somebody else, maybe Jim Cornette, Bobby, there's no one really at the table pushing for your brother. Do you understand? You have to have a twinkle in somebody's eye, which what you had with Kevin Sullivan. He knew you was a hard worker, good wrestler. He knew you was willing to do whatever it took for the wrestling business. Going to give you a job. And it was the same thing with the Fantastics, us, or anybody else. If that person liked you, then you were in. If your person's gone, then you're out. And you're exactly right, man.
remember, like it was
You
yesterday.
had all the attributes to be a star, good-looking guy. You know what I mean? You liked the business, worked hard, and that's what it's all about, you know. But it's the truth. That's funny, man. Just talk about that. That is funny.
Remember, like it was yesterday.
Yeah,
it was like
man.
Bobby Fulton in my ear. When your man's in, you're in. When your man's out, you're out. And
And
2
he
weeks
said,
later,
Paul
Man, he was out.
Orndorff said, hey, man, I'm just calling to see if anybody. I said, hey, I got a perfect guy for you, Sean Casey. I said, here's his number. And all of a sudden, we called me back. Man, he said no. Is that not the funniest story?
You can only imagine what he was thinking. You
Oh,
know?
man. Well, you know what I mean. It's tough, man. It is. For sure.
Was that before or after he beat up Vader?
I don't know.
Paul Orndorff.
I'm imagining that would have been after, because from all the reports that I've read, I've seen the thing 2 or 3 times over the internet, and that was more early. Orndorff was still working full time. I think that was a Bash at the Beach or something. Afterwards, that happened.
Yeah.
Nitro or right around Bash at the Beach. They had the confrontation in the showers, and
Whoa.
they say supposedly Orndorff was still in flip flops, and Leon come up to him and didn't like the way something was being booked, and once
Well,
he pushed him in the chest.
Yeah.
I thought he didn't want to do
it.
it. I thought he didn't want to do an interview
True
or
story.
something.
But here's the funny thing about it. Vader was in the dressing room, and me and Tommy was doing some shots for him. And he's in the dressing room, right? He said, what time is it? Well, I'm thinking he meant, I'm digging for my watch in my pocket, you know. I didn't know he wanted me to say Vader time. I'm on the boys, man, you know what I mean? So I'm up there, man, digging through my watch. You know, we didn't have cell phones back then. I'm going, hold on, what time is it? Big old gorilla looking guy, man.
4:15. Hold on, sir.
I appreciate you sharing it. That's funny, man.